Harris was put in charge, as you said earlier, of combating the roots of immigration. She was not and is not the borders are.
And the Biden administration did task Vice President Kamala Harris with the issue of migrant crossings, naming her the so-called border czar.
Look, unfortunately for America, the court isn't necessarily wrong that this is the way the framers wanted it to be. They wanted Congress, the people who are closest to their constituents, to be able to make the rules of the laws.
You well know the Trump administration negotiated the withdrawal agreement from Afghanistan with the Taliban and the State Department.
A conditional agreement, and he left Bagram Air Base. He left 2,500 troops. His advisors came to him and said, the Taliban haven't lived up to it. And he said, fine, deal's off. So how is it that the Democrats can back away from the Iran deal, from the border, from Keystone XL, can turn the page on literally dozens of Trump policies, but yet they're going to convince us that they were somehow handcuffed with a Doha agreement that Trump himself said the Taliban didn't live up to? It's a bunch of BS, and they know it. And to not acknowledge that is a slap in the face to the veterans and the Gold Star families.
And they're the ones that have gone after political opponents.
There's no evidence that Joe Biden has gone after political opponents.
That's who's going to be interviewing Kamala Harris. After 60 days of zero policies, zero substance, zero interviews, executing a coup on a sitting president, we're less than 70 days away from the biggest election of our lives. She decides to finally accept an interview with Dana Bash from CNN. Check out what Scott Jennings, who I think is the best thing that ever happened to that network, listen to what he says about this. This is amazing.
First of all, let's talk about the sit-down interview. Scott, it's the first time the vice president is going to be sitting down for an interview. She's doing it with her vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz. Do you think that blunts attacks from Republicans, or is the line now going to be, well, why isn't she doing it by herself?
Yeah, I do think people are going to bring that up. Like, I have great confidence in Dana and CNN to do this. I think it's incredibly weak sauce to show up with your running mate. The fact that they don't have enough confidence in her to let her sit herself, the actual top of the ticket, and do a single interview. In fact, I think the hand-wringing and the gyrations over this over the last month show a troubling lack of confidence in her political ability, which also makes you wonder as a voter, well, what kind of president would you be if this kind of a small-time decision, can we do an interview or not, what does that look like for your decision-making process, so on? So, yes, I think Republicans are going to think it's pretty weak to show up with effectively someone to take up half the time.
Maria, why not do it solo?
Scott's assertions are just incredibly weak, speaking about weak, and just not true. But look, Republicans are going to continue to try to throw everything at her because nothing has stuck. And she will do interviews by herself, Anderson. Let's remember that she is the nominee for all of maybe a month and some days. And so this compressed time frame, I think doing an interview with her alongside her vice presidential nominee is going to give voters the chance that they want, I believe, to not just listen to her, but to listen to the vice presidential nominee. And what will they do as a team? I think that this is going to be a great forum for the vice president and for her nominee for vice president to be able to continue to talk about what they're going to do for middle-class voters, working-class voters, making sure that they understand that their history, the vice president's history and Tim Walz's history mirrors theirs. They grew up in middle-class, working-class environments. Everything that they're going to do is going to be fighting for them, in contrast to somebody like Donald Trump, who has never done anything in his life that is not self-serving or for himself. And I think that
the guy took a bullet for democracy.
On questions that will let them bring that out.
Instead, why do you think they're doing it together and not by herself?
Well, I don't think it's a secret. Democrats over the last couple of years have increasingly thought that they can go directly to their voters, and I think have frankly been fairly slow to coming around to doing mainstream traditional interviews. We've heard the Biden campaign, now turned the Harris campaign, complain repeatedly about reporters trying to ask those type of questions, have stayed away from more traditional media interviews as they've tried to go to influencers, tried to go to podcasts that are more friendly venues for them, and they found real success with that. I think what is happening now, though, though, is there's an onus on Harris and Walz to differentiate themselves from the Biden ticket. There's open questions about what their vision would be, what their legislative priorities would be. And while the Democratic convention was an advertisement for the party writ large, a lot of the things people were saying on stage could have been just the same if it was President Biden as the nominee rather than Kamala Harris. What an interview does is put the onus on her, not just for the mastery of issues and kind of command of issues, but to lay out a vision. That is something that Kamala Harris has been fairly uncomfortable with. Speaking as someone who has interviewed her, that's not necessarily her where she likes to be. She often says, I'm not someone who's good at speeches. I'm someone who gets things done. Now, we know as president, that's a big core part of the job is to lay out that kind of vision.
Obviously, when you have a two-person interview, and you have a limited amount of time, it does limit the interviewer's ability.
I don't think this is going to be the last we hear of her, though. This is going to be the first, but I do think that question
after almost 2 months, 60 days,
will have to be able to put her out in spaces where she is answering confrontational questions and laying out her vision by herself. If this is all we get in terms of her, along with Walz, I do think those questions will ring out further.
You're running for the highest office in the land, and you haven't sat down with one reporter, you haven't given one press conference, you haven't given one answer to any policy, any substance, any ideas, any plans, any future goals. What is your plan for the issues that Americans care about? You haven't done anything. And what kind of a day and age are we living in when she finally agrees to a bupkis, premeditated, pre-recorded, mind you, interview with probably the most allied, friendly reporter on the planet, Dana Crash? What kind of world, what kind of country, what kind of party is this when you agreeing to an interview as a nominee for the highest executive position, not only in America, in the world, makes front page headline news? You got somebody like Trump who he's all over the country. He's doing town halls. He's doing spaces with Elon Musk. He's doing podcast interviews. He is broadening his base. He's doing live Q&As at his rallies and his conferences and conventions. Here's a guy who takes questions from anybody without a script, without premeditation, non-rehearsed, answering it, understanding what's at stake, actually speaking on policies that Americans care about: the border, inflation, jobs, grocery bills, gas bills, energy bills, foreign policy, the things that actual Americans care about. And you do one sit-down interview and you agree to one sit-down interview and you don't even agree to do it by yourself? You have your pathetic VP candidate, Tim Walz, to join you? Whatever happened to, man, this is the first woman president. And boy, have we picked a powerful, empowered, self-sufficient, independent woman. Does this scream independent woman? Having a man by your side for your very first sit-down interview, which is pre-recorded, premeditated, pre-rehearsed with somebody who literally defends you day and night, the most biased reporter in the entire, caucus of reporters, Dana Bash. Trump debated Biden at CNN with Fake Tapper and Dana Crash. Trump has agreed to interviews from networks, reporters, journalists that are completely opposed to him, can't stand him, with all intents and purposes, hate him. I mean, my fellow Americans, the stark difference here, the prowess of leadership, the definition of what we want in the highest office in our land, somebody who has proven that he took America to utter heights of prosperity, utter heights of respect in the world. And I don't know about you, but my wallet was amazing. My sense of security was amazing. I felt that I could actually take my kids to the park. I felt that I could actually take my kids on vacation, my family on vacation, groceries, gas, everything was within, reason and logic and practicality. And now you've got somebody who has zero qualifications, didn't earn a single vote, didn't earn a single delegation, executed a coup on a sitting president with the helps of pushing up daisies Pelosi and Chuck the Buck Schumer. Remember, she was the district attorney of San Francisco. San Francisco is a dystopia now. She was the attorney general of California. California is experiencing the largest deficit in the history of the state, the largest abortion border invasion in the history of the state, the largest taxes in the history of the state, the highest gas prices in the history of the country, the largest exodus of residents, tax-paying residents, and businesses, including huge conglomerates like Chevron, Microsoft, Twitter, X, Tesla, the largest exodus of large corporate businesses, small businesses, and medium-sized businesses in the history of the state. And the only interview you've agreed to sit down with is this one with Dana Bash from CNN? Get the out of here. Are you kidding me right now? I mean, I throw this off to you, Nez Nation. I can't wait to hear your comments on this and read them. What do you think of all this? How can anybody with confidence, how can anybody who cares about America, cares about the country, hand this individual their sacred, civic, national, emblematic pride, their vote? How can they hand it over to her? I mean, maybe I'm crazy. Am I crazy? Let me know in the comments down below. I throw this off to you. The interview is supposed to take place Thursday, August 29th. It will air 6 p.m. Eastern time. You know, I'm going to probably do a commentary analysis on that video, even though it's going to probably be painstaking to watch that entire interview. I don't know how long it's going to be. I know it's not live. I know it's going to be completely pre-rehearsed, but you know your boy Nez has got you covered. So make sure that you sign up for our free newsletter in the pinned comment, show notes, and description. Subscribe and hit the bell notification and turn on all notifications so you don't miss out on anything. Follow, and I promise you I'm going to cover everything. Check out these videos coming up on the screen right here. Leave a comment, tap the like button, and as always, may God bless you and may God bless America. I'll see you soon.